Evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 5th, 2022 meeting of the Cleveland County Commissioners at 6 p.m. We'll go ahead and get started. So first, call to order and determination of a quorum. Madam Clerk, do we have a quorum?
Yes, sir, we have a quorum.
All right, this time I'll recognize Commissioner Hutchins for our Pledge of Allegiance and invocation.
Everyone stand, face the flag, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Here's the prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity that we can come together and we can conduct business for the county. There's other places in the world that can't. There's a lot of turmoil in the world. We ask you, if you would, put your hands upon them and try to calm it down and try to heal it. We thank you for the people in harm's way, whether a police officer or a military. We ask you to use this day, give us knowledge and wisdom that we conduct business suitable for you. We ask this in Jesus' name. And all believers say amen.
Amen.
Thank you, sir. At this time, we'll recognize any elected officials we have present. All right, seeing none, now we'll recognize any veterans that are present tonight.
Johnny Hudson, U.S. Army.
Thank you. This time, we'll recognize any law enforcement present.
Danny Howell, Cleveland County Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Danny. And at this time, we'll recognize any county department heads.
Carrie Bell, Assistant County Manager.
Arthur Thompson, Chief Deputy County Attorney.
Perry Davis, Emergency Management, Fire Marshal.
Tiffany Hansen, Health Director.
Katie Swanson, Social Services Director.
Bruce Martin, Planning. Scott Putnam,
All right, Commissioners, before you have your proposed agenda, are there any items to be added to the agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor will indicate by saying, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed will say no. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is special recognition, the National Public Health Week. Ms. Tiffany Hansen.
Oh, I didn't know if you were going to say a few things
I was
before.
just going to say just a couple things, Phyllis.
Yes.
Mr. Chair and fellow board members, thank you for allowing me to be with you tonight. I think that this week, National Public Health Week, is very special to us on most every year that we celebrate, but this year, as we kind of reflect on the COVID pandemic, I feel like it kind of holds just a little bit sweeter sentiment for all of us as we're kind of on the tail end of hopefully the end of this as we see numbers improving and things. And I just want to say thank you for all of your support throughout the entire last year and 2 years especially, and really just kind of commemorate through this resolution and recognition all the hard work that our public health team has done throughout the last couple years as we've kind of figured out how to navigate this pandemic. So thank you to all of you guys for all your work, and thank you really to our public health team.
Thank you.
Thank you. National Public Health Week 2022. Whereas the Cleveland County Public Health workforce serves as a critical component of the county's emergency response system, helping communities prevent, prepare for, withstand, and recover from impact of a full range of health threats, including disease outbreaks such as the COVID-19 pandemic, natural disasters, and disasters caused by human activity. Whereas county's public health workers have been courageous, creative, and dedicated in their work to protect our residents from the specific threats of the COVID-19 pandemic while continuing to constantly perform other essential public health functions, resulting in high-quality service delivery. And whereas public health measures to control and eliminate infectious diseases, improve environmental sanitation, and promote healthy lifestyle choices have been the greatest factor in improving the health status and increasing life expectancy for the residents of our county. And whereas the Public Health Board of Cleveland County and the Cleveland County Public Health workforce are committed to a continued emphasis on prevention and education in public health to assist county residents in achieving improved health status through actions through the Healthy North Carolina 2030 objectives. And whereas the Public Health Board of Cleveland County and the Cleveland County Public Health workforce promote collaboration among all segments of the communities of Cleveland County to identify and develop innovative solutions to health issues predominant in the county. And now therefore, the Cleveland County Board of Commissioners proclaim April 4th through the 10th, 2022 as National Public Health Week in Cleveland County and encourages all county residents to support opportunities to adopt positive preventive lifestyle choices and to acknowledge that public health is where you are. Adopted this 6th day of April, 2022. Denny, do you want to stand up front? Do you wanna-
Here you go. Thank you very much. Thank you for all that you do. Yeah. All right, next on the agenda is National Child Abuse Prevention Month, 2022. Katie Swanson.
Good evening. Thank you for having me, Chair and Commissioners. I'm excited to be here tonight. Child abuse prevention is a very important piece to the community, keeping our children safe and healthy. I want to thank a few people that help us do that each year. Definitely our law enforcement officers are a huge piece of what we do, as well as our mental health partners. We have a couple community groups that do a lot of work around prevention. Safe Kids is one of them. Our health department, our child community protection team. We couldn't do the work that we do without those teams helping us. We do have a few people, social workers, a couple in the back that I'd like to say thank you and recognize them, as well as my entire staff who does a great job every day of working in this field. I do want to just say that we have one more event this month, which is called Sound the Alarm. It's on April 29th, and we're excited to be able to do that again. We haven't been able to do it the last few years because of COVID. So please plan to attend. I know my advisory board will be part of that as well. So
It's on
thank
your
you.
calendar.
It's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Katie, don't go anywhere. Child Abuse Prevention Month 2022. Whereas while children are vital to our state's future success, prosperity, and quality of life, they are also the most vulnerable members of our society. And whereas the problem of child abuse and neglect affects many of Cleveland County's children and has reached epidemic proportions in North Carolina, with over 99,500 children reported abused, neglected, or dependent last year. And whereas last year, Cleveland County Department of Social Services had over 1,900 children reported abused, neglected, or dependent. And whereas preventing child abuse and neglect is a community responsibility that affects both the current and future quality of life of our community. And whereas effective child abuse strategies succeed because of the partnerships created among individuals and families, human service agencies, schools, faith communities, healthcare providers, civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and business community. And whereas every child has a right to be safe, healthy, nurturing environment, and community action is needed to help prevent child abuse so all children can have the opportunity to reach their potential. We call upon community to increase their participation in efforts to support families, thereby preventing child abuse and strengthening the communities in which we live. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Cleveland County Board of Commissioners hereby proclaims the month of April 2022 as Child Abuse Prevention Month and calls upon every citizen to join the child protection organizations, groups, and individuals in observance of the month with appropriate education and prevention of child abuse. Adopted this the 5th day of April 2022.
Thank you very much. Again, Tiffany and Katie, thank you for all that you do in the departments that you manage and supervise day to day, and you both do critical work for the good of the county and good of the citizens. Commissioners, anybody else have any comments you'd like to add?
I'd like to say I appreciate all both departments doing, because I know they're working hard. And I know what child prevention, we're supposed to be wearing blue. know, little spell things. You got yours?
I got my pen on.
Okay. I just appreciate all both departments do for the county. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's, children should have a special place in all of our hearts, and people that abuse children is just, you know, I don't know how you, I guess I'd get mad if I started talking about what we ought to do to them, but anyway, we appreciate what y'all are doing to help protect our children.
Also, Tiffany, it's been a long 2 years, and I'm glad we're starting to see some daylight, and we appreciate all the hard work and dedication that your team's done.
Yeah, well, I appreciate both of you. I'm fortunate enough to be on the advisory board with social services, and appreciate Katie's great work. And Tiffany, you walked in the middle of the pandemic, so that's just amazing what you done.
You're about 2-year anniversary, and the whole 2 years has been.
All right, thank you all. Next on the agenda is citizen recognition. Madam Clerk, do we have any names?
No, no, sir, no one
No
signed
names
up.
tonight? All right. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Brian?
Thanks, Commissioner Gordon. Several items for consideration this evening. We'll begin customarily with item A, which are minutes from your March 15th regular commissioner meeting. Item B is a budget amendment number 46 from the Register of Deeds Office, a request to budget $425 in donated funds from the local government federal credit union, and that is to offset costs. Budget $1,061,706. Again, those are dollars that flow through the county, so in and out for emergency assistance and utilities. Item F from Cooperative Extensions, budget amendment number 50. Request to budget $9,220 in donated funds to be used for the Dottie Leatherwood Memorial Garden project that's in an early phase, and these funds will just be used to continue the planning process. At this point, those are really the only funding mechanism is through these private donations. Item G, also from Cooperative Extensions, budget amendment number 51 on the year. North Carolina Department of Agriculture grant, $61,380, and those funds will be used to purchase a community fertilizer commodity shed. Item H, budget amendment number 52, also from Cooperative Extensions, very similar as the previous item, $42,500 from the North Carolina Department of Agriculture, and that'll be used to purchase a baler for hay. Item I, from the Planning Department, case 2211 on the year. This is a request to set a public hearing for rezoning of property at 132 Jim Patterson Road from residential manufactured home parks to general business conditional use. And the conditional use permit would establish that the property would be used for a wedding / event venue, as well as a campground. And general business is the only type of zoning that allows for both uses. Again, this will go to the planning board and come back to the commissioner, so this, at this point, is just an opportunity to request to set a public hearing. Item J, from our legal department, is a request to sell county-owned property, parcel number 40159. At your last meeting, you began the upset bid process. This is property that the county inherited via foreclosure in 2017. Our cost basis for this property is $2,523.38. We were approached with a bid of $3,500, which exceeds our cost. We have run the necessary statutory advertisements and again, upset bid process, and the recommendation at this time is to sell that property. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the consent agenda. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, sir. Commissioners, you've been presented a consent agenda. Is there any discussion or questions for Brian?
If there's no question, I make a motion, we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor will indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed will say no. Motion carries. So we're on to the next, which is public hearings. Madam Clerk?
After the public hearing has been opened, persons wishing to speak for or against the proposition will be asked to come forward and first state his or her name and address. All comments from the public are to be directed to the board. There are no comments directed at other members of the audience. If a speaker has a question, that question is to be directed to the chair. No one will be allowed to speak at the hearing more than once unless the chair recognizes a speaker a second time for rebuttal of information brought forth after the speaker has spoken. The original presentation by a speaker will be limited to no more than 5 minutes. The rebuttal presentation will be no limited to no more than 3 minutes.
All right, we have a series of 3 of these tonight. The first one, Planning Department will come forward and just present case 2207, request to rezone property at 1205 Costner Road from rural agriculture to light industrial, and this will be a conditional use. Mr. Martin?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Board. So I have 3 items for you. First is a request from a property owner to change the zoning of approximately 3.7 acres of land. Get the map. I'll bring a map up on the overhead for you. The property owner and the applicant is Mr. James Hefner, and he's asking to rezone this property from rural ag zoning district to a light industrial conditional use. And with the conditional use portion of that, his intention is to continue using the property like the current uses of a warehousing and some wholesale retail. And his intentions are also to be able to subdivide the property in the future. The rural ag district, which is the current district of this parcel and the surrounding area, the uses that you'll find in that district comprise of a lot of residential, agriculture uses, and some rural style of commercial uses. In this particular area, you'll see a lot of rural area, large tracts of land and farming and single-family dwellings throughout this area. The property that's with the request to rezone currently has 2 buildings on it. One is being used for storage, warehousing, and then the second is being used for a wholesale retail type of establishment. We have presented this case to the planning board. They voted to, or they recommend to approve. They noted that although it does not comply with the land use plan designation of secondary growth or rural preservation, and although it is spot zoning, they felt like that since it's conditional, so you've got, the fact that it'll continue to be in use for that current use, they felt like being conditional allows it to be justified as a spot zone. For those 2 reasons, that the uses would remain the same, the neighbors would not notice a difference in uses, and then also another positive that they noted was that rezoning would bring the 2 uses into compliance with the current district. They currently are non-compliant. They were established prior to zoning of that area, so rezoning to light industrial would bring this property into compliance. And with that, I can answer any questions.
I just have a question. In the event that he says he's going to continue using it as is, what advantage or disadvantage would he have to rezone it?
That's subdivision. With the rural ag zoning district, the minimum lot size is 3 acres, and this particular parcel is 3.7. So he doesn't have enough land to be able to subdivide into 2 parcels.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, there's no other questions. At this time, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against case 2207, request to rezone property at 12005 Caution Road from rural agriculture to light industrial, conditional use, please come forward and state your name and address.
Good evening, Chair and Board. My name is Tom Brooks. I recently purchased 1210 Costner Road directly across the street. I just purchased about 50 acres for my family, and rezoning that could potentially devalue the value of my land and my home. And that's my concern. So that would be why I would not want it rezoned. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak for or against case 2207, request to rezone property at 1205 Caution Road from rural agriculture to light industrial, conditional use, please come forward and state your name and address. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Any questions or discussion by the commissioners?
Can we have Chris back up for a minute?
Yep, Chris?
This is a conditional use, so if the people that are currently in this close down or whatever, then somebody else can't just go in and open something. Am I correct or am I wrong?
You're correct. If approved with the site plan and the conditions in the application, the property owners would then have to continue using the property as approved, and in this situation, as being used now.
The same way it's being used now.
That's correct. And if there was a scenario in the future where there was another business owner that wanted to use one of these buildings for a different type of business, they would have to come back to the board and ask to modify that application to allow that. And at that time, the board could determine if that potential use would be a compatible business in that area.
But would that be, if we divided, that would be on both pieces of property?
Well, if it's subdivided in the future and say one of the buildings change ownership, then they would have the option of just bringing that one parcel back as a different zoning
But
district.
they would still have to come back.
Still have to come
That,
back.
they would still have to come back if either one of those buildings ever changed the use. And that gives the board a chance to evaluate that proposed use and make sure that it would be compatible.
Well, I'm a fan of trying to get all the properties in the county into compliant zonings. And, it's going to take a while to do that, but since nothing's going to change, the occupation of the buildings are not going to change, I feel like that I'd like to make a motion that we accept the zoning change.
So we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any other discussion? If not, all those in favor will indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed will say no. All right, motion carries. Item number 6 on the agenda, Planning Department has another case, case 2208, section 12-142, text amendment of the Cleveland County Unified Development Ordinance. Mr. Martin.
This next request is coming from the Broadway Group, LLC, and they are asking to change the language in our code regarding the parking requirements or the number of spaces required. What they're proposing is to change the part of that parking ordinance that deals with retail establishments. They're asking to reduce the required number of spaces from 1 for every 200 square feet of floor space to 1 space for every 400 feet of floor space. So essentially cutting the requirement in half. What staff's done is we've received the application and we've evaluated some other jurisdictions throughout the state. We actually, the method we used was we polled the planning listserv for North Carolina, and we received a number of responses, which we have on the board. And what we found is that Cleveland County we were more strict than everybody else. Our requirement of 1 per 200 was definitely on the more strict end. What you'll see numbers ranging from 300 all the way to 1 per 500 feet for retail space. We presented this case to the planning board, and they have evaluated it. They felt like after evaluating the other jurisdictions' ordinances, they felt like the request was reasonable. They also noted that if changed to the requested 400 feet requirement, they would make that retail more consistent with the shopping center requirement, which is already 1 space per 400 square feet. And they felt like it was also changing it to 400 would be more consistent with the other jurisdictions. And options tonight would be to approve this request, deny, or approve with any modifications that the board sees fit.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Can I answer any questions?
Questions by the board?
I see Walmart up there. Is this for all size businesses, or would this just be for the smaller businesses? So if we changed it, then potentially we could have a Walmart with half as many spaces?
That's right. This would affect all retail. So regardless of size, it would affect all the retail. Anything from a Walmart to a mid-size, which would be like a dollar type of store, down to the small mom and pop, privately owned company.
Any other questions? So I have one. So, Chris, does this Broadway group have a project in mind, or they just canvass our code to cherry pick this piece apart?
Yeah. So historically, they've worked to develop the dollar stores. And they've done a number of those throughout the county and in a lot of the towns within Cleveland County over the years.
So I guess my question, if they've already built all those buildings, then why change the code now? So,
I guess when you went built, then it wouldn't take as much land to fill the new stores, regardless of what is Dollar General, Family Dollar, Mom and Pop, whatever, it takes less land.
Right. Yeah, I think when you think about it on the ground, you're talking about half the parking, half the pavement, more green space. So there's definitely some pros to the reduction in the number of spaces.
So is this they only have to have this much, they can reduce it, but what if somebody wanted to build more? Could they?
They could.
So like if the
They
Walmart
could.
wanted to build a bigger parking lot or something, they could do either way.
Right.
So it doesn't prevent larger, it just, they don't have to have large.
Yes, our code would be the minimum.
Okay.
Developer is more than welcome to exceed that.
And it would affect stormwater runoff, because they would only have to take care of half the water to run off the parking lot, and that's where a lot of it comes in, is the stormwater runoff.
That's
I mean,
right.
even
So,
with the fire department being built, they run into the same thing, and they had to have so many parking places, and the stormwater runoff could be expensive. So it's a way of not having to spend as much money in building a building.
yeah, I agree. The more green space you have, the less stormwater impact that you're going to have.
Well, you're saying more green space, but potentially they can put the same amount on less land, so you wouldn't necessarily have more green space, would you?
Well, if the lot's reduced, that would be the case.
You know, just a comment.
Non-porous may be the more appropriate term to use.
But since the agenda, and I saw this, and I've been more observant passing some of these businesses, and it appears that some of the parking spaces that they've got doesn't seem like it fits the building, especially if they're on a corner and you gotta have traffic coming out two different directions or something. Seem like that, it would be safer to have more rather than less, to me now. I don't know.
From a public safety standpoint.
Yeah, from a public safety standpoint.
Do you know if there's been any problem with congestion around any of these smaller businesses like that?
I'm not aware of any. We have had no complaints of any of the dollar type of stores throughout the county or any other type of retail establishment.
Because if you lower the amount of parking spaces, it makes it a little slower and harder to get in and out, so.
Right.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, Chris. So at this time, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against case 22-08, section 12-142, text amendment to the Cleveland County Unified Development Ordinance, please come forward and state your name and address. Anyone wishing to speak for or against case 22-08, section 12-142, text amendment of the Cleveland County Unified Development Ordinance, please come forward and state your name and address. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, are there any other questions or discussion?
Just, I guess a question for Chris, you said that in canvassing the area had between 200 square feet and 500 square feet. Is that correct?
That's correct. We basically polled the planning listserv statewide and received a number of responses. And those ranged
So
from,
we could say with averages and go to 300.
certainly could. I think the board has the flexibility to modify
Yeah, we
the
can
request.
Modify that.
Looking on this list, Catawba County is the closest one to us, and they're the 500, so I guess, I'm not sure I'm willing to go and let it be that small of parking spaces. I think I'd agree with Johnny maybe in doing the, maybe going to 300.
You make that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to modify the recommendation from 200 to 300 square feet per parking space. I guess I said that correct, right? That is the plan. So with that, are there any other questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed will say no. All right, motion carries. So Chris, we have one more. So the planning department also has case 22-09, request to rezone properties along Stony Point Road from restricted residential to residential.
All right, so our third and final case for you tonight is another request to change the zoning of multiple parcels in this case. The applicant is David Bradshaw, and he's asking to rezone 22 parcels along Stony Point Road, equaling about 120 acres. And he's requesting to change it from restricted residential to residential. The difference in those two districts are that the restricted residential only allows site-built homes and modular homes, which meet the North Carolina State Building Code. And then the traditional residential district allows that plus the manufactured housing. He has worked the neighborhood and received signatures from property owners involved in the designated area. Our policy requires that when you have a multiple parcel request, that you obtain at least 67% of the property owners to sign your petition supporting that district. Mr. Bradshaw has received 21 out of 22 parcels, equaling about 95%. So he's exceeded the policy. The area is along Stony Point, as I mentioned. It's adjoining to the west, or excuse me, to the east of this boundary. You'll see an existing residential zone in that white area. And then to the south, there's a parcel that's also residential, which was changed several months back. So if approved, this boundary would connect both of those existing residential districts. Land use plan calls this area the prime growth area. So changing from one type of residential to another is not going to affect the consistency of that land use plan. We've submitted this to the planning board. They recommend 5-1 to approve this request, and they felt like that by approving, if approved, it would be an extension of those two residential zoning districts. And they also noted that the uses within the boundary you'll find a lot of manufactured homes already in that boundary, and they felt like that if approved, it would bring those uses into compatibility. It would make them more compatible with the district that they're in. I can answer any questions on that one, and it would also require a public hearing.
Board, do you have any questions? All right, if not, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against case 22-09, request to rezone properties along Stony Point Road from restricted residential to residential, please come forward and state your name and address.
My name is David Bradshaw. I own the property at 980 Stony Point Road, and I'm the one that circulated the petition. When I bought the property, I already had a double wide, and I was removing a trailer to put my trailer on it. And only when I went to the planning, to Chris, I found out that I could not get permits because the property had been vacated with no utilities for 10 months. And there's a little sub-law that says if it's over 6 months, it's gone. I mean, you can no longer have that type of housing there. And that was the reason for the petition. Chris has been most helpful in helping me outline the area and get the names and the property owners for these different parcels. And I have talked to each one of them and did my best to explain, you know, what was involved, why I was doing it and everything, and how it would involve our properties. When I turned in the petition to Chris, he was concerned that maybe some of the people didn't understand, or that if it was done too quickly, they may not have got the full impact of what was going on. So I composed a letter and sent it to each residence with my name, my phone number for follow-up, if anybody wanted to. And I have not received any follow-up on it. I met some excellent people in the area, and I hope to be able to move into that neighborhood. It's nice. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak for or against case 22-09, request to rezone properties along Stony Point Road from restricted residential to residential, please come forward and state your name and address. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. So any additional questions or discussion by the commissioners?
It seems we're just going to be making it consistent with the present use. So I would be in favor, and I'd make the motion that we allow the change.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed will say no. All right, motion is carried. Thank you, Chris, for all your work. Now we'll move on to regular agenda. First item is Broad River Greenway update. Ms. Kim Duran, is that right? Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, the board. I appreciate the opportunity to come talk to you
particularly after 2 years of COVID, we thought it was particularly timely to come before you and kind of let you know what we had going on, what we've been doing, and where we're headed. For some of you, you may not realize the Greenway is almost 30 years old. We broke ground in 1995. We are 27 years old. We started with 400 acres. We're now 1,500. Oh, thank you. Normally, people tell me I already talk too loud, but I appreciate that. We have 15 miles of trail. It's all natural surface. We have 4 miles of river frontage. And for those of you who do not know, we have seen consistently, since we started doing car tracking, over 110,000 visitors a year. And that's a very conservative matrix that we use. And it's the same matrix we've used since the very beginning, so we're not comparing apples to oranges. 110,000 visitors is pretty much the population of Cleveland County that comes through the Greenway every year. For the last 16 years, not just Cleveland County, but all over western North Carolina and the Piedmont, the Greenway has brought people to Bowling Springs and to Cleveland County. As I am sure I do not have to tell you guys, tourism is economic development, and that's what we've got going on at the Greenway. 365 days a year, the Broad River Greenway provides exercise, education, nurtures an appreciation of nature, and an abundance of the Broad River. Recent additions include a third picnic shelter, a boat launch, and the commissioning of an engineering survey for trail conditions so that we can prioritize erosion issues on older trails and start repairs and plan for grants. We will continue to offer free events to the public throughout the year, including the Easter egg hunt, which is coming up this coming weekend on the 10th. Candy Goes Fast, be there too. The Family Fishing Day, Enchanted Forest, and Santa are just a few of the annual events that we've been putting on for the entire 22 years that I've been with the Greenway. My favorite addition in the last 2 years, we've added a story walk. It is seeing increased use, and our strategic plan includes, right now it's a temporary structure that we are rotating through. Our plans are to make it a more permanent facility there, but we are seeing a lot of use along that. I appreciated the mention of activity, physical health, all those great things. We offer those at the Greenway and have for the last 30 years. 2022 and 23, we are focusing on expanding our target market. We feel like we have spent the last several decades really learning our community and providing for that local community and the regional community around here. What we want to do now is start reaching beyond that and work on developing events and programs that bring overnight visitors. We are working together with the Cleveland County Tourism Authority and the Bowling Springs Tourism Authority to make that happen. In addition, we're seeing increased business opportunities as a direct result of the Broad River. Broad River Campground, which I am sure has come before you up to before now, is the first, but certainly not the last, business that will result from the Broad River Greenway being in Cleveland County. The Greenway Council and staff would just like to take a moment to thank you for your support over these last decades, and we look forward to being that continued partner as we move forward. And again, I will be happy to answer any questions if you have any for me.
Thank you for your presentation, ma'am. Any questions from the board?
I think it's a great place to be there. I wish it was a little bit closer to my house, but.
Well, we can work on moving you over.
But when you first started the Home Builders Association, which I was a part of then, built one of the picnic shelters.
And it is a
One of the first ones, so.
It's the standard we try and match as we move forward, and it is not an easy task to do. You guys did an awesome job.
So.
Understand that when the Broad River Greenway got started was due to the clover that was found in the bypass of 74 North.
It is a dwarf.
And they had to replant it and wait so many years to.
Well, the plant does not transplant well. It is called the dwarf heartleaf ginger. It's Hexastylus naniflora. One of the first words I learned when I started at the Greenway. It was a $3 million project that brought us to 1,000 acres. To put that, we have the largest protected track Hexastylus in the state. At the time, they thought it was only found in about 10 to 20 counties around this area. And for an endangered plant, it seemed to be everywhere they wanted to put the bypass. So that is how we managed to get the property. It was paid for by North Carolina DOT, and they still come out and monitor that plant. I call it the ugliest $3 million plant on the face of the planet. It only blooms underneath the leaf litter, and if you pull the leaf litter back, it looks like Medusa.
So you don't have a picture of it in our
I
slides?
do not have a good picture of it because it only blooms underneath the leaf litter in March and April. It is incredibly hard to get a really good photo.
Anybody else? Well, Kim, Jake, thank you guys for all that you do and the volunteers and all the stuff that you do out there. It's a great compliment to the community. All right, moving on, the next item is Fire Prevention Code Ordinance, Ms. Martha Thompson.
Good evening. Tonight, legal staff, along with the fire marshal, are seeking to have y'all consider amending or adding a fire code ordinance. Thank you. Hold on.
It's the down one.
And I think you have a copy of the ordinance with you, but what we're looking at is, as part of the county's public safety strategic plan, the county's consultants have recommended the consideration of an ordinance adopting the North Carolina Fire Prevention Code, and also to empower the fire marshal to enforce codes within the county. And staff recommends adopting an ordinance to set forth the duties of the fire marshal. So the ordinance has three parts, and the first one is setting forth the duties, allowing the county manager to appoint, to hire and remove the fire marshal, just like he does with other county personnel. It also sets forth the duties to interface with all the fire departments, to enforce the state fire code, and also to make certain fire-related building inspections. And there's some other associated duties with that. So the second part of the ordinance sets forth the adoption of the North Carolina Fire Prevention Code, and this is, we're not adopting our own local fire prevention code. If we did that, that would require state approval, but we're looking at approving the state fire prevention code in its amended fashion. So it could be enforced, and the third part is enforcement. It would allow enforcement by the fire marshal himself, and there are civil penalties that are based upon the type of offense that's related, and you'll see those are both basically monetary that can be enforced by the civil action, which was injunction, not a, to prevent whatever it is they're doing. And then there's some criminal remedies that are also included in there that are set forth as misdemeanor as the statute permits. So we've determined that it appears that a public hearing would be appropriate because this is considered a land use regulation. As the fire code's part of the state building code. And because there's criminal penalties involved, it requires 2 readings. So what we're asking for y'all to consider tonight, first is just to acknowledge that we've done the first reading. You have the full ordinance in front of you. And secondly, to go ahead and adopt the setting of a public hearing for April 19th meeting and have that properly noticed as required in the Shelby Star. And it would be, that would take two notices and set it for that date. Now, I'm here to talk about the ordinance if you have any questions, as long as Perry Davis Any questions?
Questions from the board?
Yeah, I do. My understanding, reading through the code, whatever, if you've got a property that's trashy, whatever, that could prevent a fire, that you would have the authorization to go in and say you gotta clean it up. Is that correct?
Yes, Commissioner Hudson, there are provisions within the North Carolina Fire Code that do allow us to enforce some of that.
I would ask you a particular place, so I'll do that in private. You know where I'm getting at.
Yes, sir.
Other questions?
Questions? Any other questions?
So there's no, we don't have to do any voting on anything tonight. We just
Except voting
acknowledge
to,
the fact that we.
Yeah, we're just voting to
Just
approve the
choose-
public hearing on,
Okay.
on Tuesday, April the 19th.
yes, so, and at that
And this is first
meeting,
reading.
we'll be prepared to have you all vote.
Need to make a motion to set the public hearing?
Yes, sir.
I do.
And I'll second.
All right, so the motion is to set the public hearing for Tuesday, April 19th, 2022 at 6 PM. Motion second. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. All right, motion carries. Thank you, guys. Next item on the agenda is the community population update. Carrie Melton.
Good evening. I'm excited to be here tonight to share actually some exciting news with the board. I think it's kind of fitting that we have Broad River Greenway here with us because when we talk about some of the reasons for community growth, I think Broad River Greenway and the decisions the board has made over the last several years has led to some of this growth. So I just want to take a minute just to kind of look back in 2016, we've said this several times, but you remember our manager getting up and saying we're a dying county. And I think the board listened to that and listened to what he said, and really, the board has changed your story. What I'm going to talk to you tonight about is community growth and population growth, and the fact that this board really has been able to change that story, to take Cleveland County from a dying county to something very different. Cleveland County's begun to experience population growth. And I would like to announce, well, first we'll talk about national population trends. As you can see here, North Carolina is the fourth largest population gain, had the fourth largest population gain from April of 2020 to July 2021. And I'm happy to report that Cleveland County was one of those counties that experienced growth. The county has actually crossed the threshold of 100,000 residents. When I did a little research on this from the census website, it really talked about 4 counties, and you can look it up if you want. 4 counties kind of crossed, across the nation, crossed that threshold, and we were one of them. So we are noted on the census website as being one county of 4 in the nation that topped 100,000. I really tried to do some research back, looked from 1970, 80, 90 census, and really this is the first time Cleveland County, although when I first started, we talked about the county being at 100,000. I don't think it was ever actually noted to be at 100,000. So I'm really proud. We should all be proud as a community that we have crossed that threshold. From 20 to 21, you'll see the United States. There's been growth everywhere, but kind of very small growth. The percentage of growth in the United States really is the lowest that it has been really since the country has even been established. So we're not seeing huge population change, but Cleveland County, again, is seeing some of that growth. If you look at this chart here, you'll see really we had from about 2008 to 2016 a decline in population. And again, that's when the board was really made aware of this fact that we were a dying county, and really some policy changes were made to increase that. And you'll see really 2018 to now, there's really kind of been a steep incline up in our population growth. Oops, sorry. One of the things I just wanted to kind of make note of around population growth is the change. And there's really two ways to look at population growth. One is by natural growth, and two is by migration. And if you see from this chart, really the natural change is a negative number. And this is not unique to Cleveland County or really to anywhere in the country, but national trends are showing less people are having babies. But one of the things you can note here is really where our population has grown is from this migration. There's some domestic migration as well as international migration. So when we look at the fact that people are not having as many children, we really have to look at a different way to grow our population other than just more people having more babies. This chart here really shows, and you'll see the red circles are kind of the big areas. This is where folks are moving out of state into Cleveland County. So you'll see the majority of those being around kind of the Atlanta, South Carolina area, and then Florida and Washington, D.C. And then if you look here, this is where people are coming from inside North Carolina to Cleveland County. So lots of folks from Charlotte, Gastonia, and the Raleigh area are coming to Cleveland County inside of North Carolina. So one question you might ask is, what is driving the population growth? So we've done a little thinking about what potentially could be driving that growth. And I just wanted to kind of highlight some of the policy decisions that have been made by this board that really are helping drive that population, with the first being economic development success. As you can see from this chart, our labor force has continued to grow. Really, even through the pandemic, we've been able to stay pretty steady. But due to that economic development success and the creation of jobs, we have more people moving to our county. The next area I just want to talk about is community-minded policy decisions. This is something exciting for Cleveland County, our cost of living. People are moving here because our cost of living is lower, 9.6% lower compared to the national average, and really affordable housing. Although we don't have a lot available right now, as we continue to build new houses in our county, our housing prices are really about 49% lower compared to the national average. The last note, obviously, I want to commend the board for is our tax rate history. Our cost of living is low because of decisions that the board has made around tax rate and continuing to make our county affordable to its residents. Obviously, evidenced by the growth in building in our county. We have approximately 3,650 new houses or new properties being built in the county. You'll see some pretty big numbers over in Cleveland County, but over in Kings Mountain, but you'll also see really it's spread across the entire county. So we're looking forward to having that housing available to our citizens and to those who do want to move into our county. Safe community, I know that's important for a lot of people to relocate to Cleveland County. They want to make sure that they live in a safe community. And trends over the last several years have become that you can see that Cleveland County really is a safe community to live in. Investments in place. I think, again, going back to the Broad River Greenway, I think it's fitting. The board has really taken some time to invest in place. We brought tourism under the county's umbrella in 2016. This has been able to increase property tax, but also we brought visitors here, and some of them have never left. Emily Epley can share about some people that have come here to visit and have decided to move here. So when people come visit, they get to see our community and see all that it has to offer, and they want to come and live in Cleveland County. So I think that investment in place is really important, and the board's done a great job to invest in things like the Greenway, like the Kings Mountain Gateway Trail, the library, several other things that bring folks to want to live in this place. Another thing I want to commend the board for is really making strategic investments and partnerships in education. I think the board has continued to see the importance of education and recruitment of qualified teachers. I know that's something you're looking at. You continue to find ways to partner with Gardner-Webb and then support and grow both the Cleveland County Schools as well as Cleveland Community College. So future population and what can we think about? I think one of the things that we've talked about several times and we can see is that jobs follow people. We've talked about that several times. Jobs follow people, people don't follow jobs. So I think the board is at a kind of critical time right now and an exciting time to be able to really make some more policy decisions. I know we talked about in the past, economic development at one time was, you know, tax incentives, how much can you give, and now it's really talent retention and making sure that we have a way to attract talent to our county. College is everywhere now. Jobs follow people. People aren't having as many babies, so I think it's a great time for our board to be able to make some policy decisions around how do we bring more people to Cleveland County and help that population to grow. I wanted to just take an opportunity to, again, commend you all for really changing your story, from going from a county that was not seeing growth to one that is now seeing growth because of the decisions that you all have made. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Questions from the board?
Appreciate the information that you brought us up to date on, at least we have grown, you know, and a lot of different reasons point that out that you showed us. So appreciate your presentation.
Anybody else?
All right, thank you again, Carrie. With that, no action is required on that item tonight. So commissioners, do you have anything you'd like to report?
Chair, I don't have a report. I'd like a request, and I'd like to direct it toward the county manager.
Okay.
Seemed like a few meetings ago, I got a call where we had more than 2 commissioners attending a public meeting. They was instructed that by law, they could do it. I'd like for you to elaborate on it and verify it and tell us when we can. All of us meet in a meeting of what the situation was.
Sure. So it's a great question. I would say that often there's many complexities that go into those decisions, and ultimately, the governing statute and law in North Carolina that's commonly referred to as the open meeting law prevents for any public body, elected body, to meet in which they could establish a quorum, meaning the majority of that respective board being in the same area. But the law is very specific as it relates to conducting business or participating in business. I think that each commissioner has to, whether it's commissioner, whether it's town council, city council, school board, you know, whomever, I think they have to be sensitive to and make individual decisions about perception, but generally, as it relates from a legal perspective, and certainly we have multiple attorneys in the room that could clarify further if needed, but generally the law speaks to a quorum being present in any environment in which they are participating or conducting or directing operational business, that being prohibited. Being in the same area for leisure or for educational opportunities or anything like that, are again, things that you may tend to stay away from just to be guarded, but not non-compliant with state law. Is that fair?
Unless you're discussing or conducting county policy business, you're fine. Like you all may be together at a political party function. And you can do that, that's not an issue.
This was a county function meeting, I guess, the county was meeting with an agency, and more than 2 commissioners were there.
But only one commissioner.
Hey, I didn't.
Even said anything.
Let him go ahead and answer the question.
Okay.
Yeah, so that, I mean, that would be my response, and I was asked that question that day. Any 3, 4, 5 elected officials, a quorum can be together as long as they're not actively conducting county
So
business.
any public meeting that the county calls or has, all 5 commissioners can show up as long as 2 of them are active and the other 3 are assessed by.
I think that's generally, as long as no more than 1 or 2 board members are actively participating in the conduction of any type of county business. There's so many variables there, it's hard to give you an absolute. I know you're looking for a yes or no answer, but the reality is, if there's involvement in the conduction of county business by more than 2, since we have a 5-member board, that would establish a quorum and violate state law. I think in the specific situation that you're talking about, there was active participation by 1 county commissioner and 2 other county commissioners that were present but not participating, and that doesn't violate state law.
I understand that, I just, for the future,
Yes, sir.
if we have other meetings, so more than 2 commissioners can attend any call meeting, county
So-
business, and it'll be all right.
That's right. And I would say, again, I'm happy to conduct a training or, get our attorney, legal team to put together further analysis because it is a complicated situation. It doesn't require presence to violate the open meeting law. Text messages, phone calls, there's car rides, so many ways that you have to be sensitive of establishing a quorum and making decisions. Again, generally, I think individual board members have to make those decisions themselves. The guidance from staff is always going to be conservative. But in the instance that there is, a participatory type meeting that more than 2 board members want to be a part of, the precision has to just be that they're not actively participating, conducting, or guiding county business.
One thing that concerns me about that is the perception, because what people perceive, they believe is truth. So that's the thing that bothers me about. We need to all be really conscious of how we attend meetings like that so that we're not perceived as doing something wrong.
Brian's exactly right. It is complicated, but the statute, I'm sorry, I have no voice today. The statute is 143-318-10 sub D. Basically, it comes down to purpose. What is the purpose for the gathering? Is it for the purpose of conducting hearings and participating in deliberations or voting on or otherwise transacting public business? So if the purpose is not to be there to conduct hearings and participate in deliberations, attendance doesn't trigger the open meetings law. I think generally that may assist in the way you're thinking, but if you have specific questions about certain events or want some detailed analysis, again, we're happy to provide that.
Well, like I say, all the years I've been with commissioners, always no more than 2 commissioners at a meeting, and then all of a sudden, legally, 3, 4, 5 can attend as long as 1 or 2 or 3 sets back and says nothing.
The very easy rule is that if a majority is never present, you never have to worry about the analysis.
Well, that's what.
Yeah, that's the perception part.
Because I'm not fussing because that happened. But before the meeting's over with, I done had a call that, hey, you other 2 commissioners don't care nothing about this meeting. I said, what are you talking about? Well, we had 3 of them there and 2 of them just didn't show up. So the perception of the community was different than, what I'm saying.
And I understand this, but there's been planning board meetings where 3 or 4 of us showed up and just sit and listened, and what's the difference?
I haven't been to any board meetings unless it was a.
There was 4 of us at LeGrand Center when they were talking about, what was the? Any report?
That was the hearing over the river,
What?
side over there. Wasn't that where that one was?
Yeah, I mean,
Because of COVID, we all were
So
there.
I understand, and I wouldn't want any perception, but, I was one of the people involved, and I made a phone call and said, is this a problem? And I was told, as long as there was no business And so I sat in the back room and kept my mouth shut because I just wanted to know what was going on. But maybe I was wrong.
No, legally you were right. But I think to me, you're talking about the Grand Center.
It was where they were talking,
The map.
the map, yeah, and they were
Yeah,
telling
the
us
map.
that we had all these empty houses, and you got up and said, where's all these empty houses? Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
That there were 4 of us there that
Four,
night,
yeah.
and so is this the same thing?
Well, that's what I'm asking.
As Martha said, if you ever have any questions, feel free to call staff. We'll give you the analysis based on the many complexities and variables of each situation. The safe answer, as Commissioner Hutchins has said in his 20 years on the board, is, remove and make every necessary step to remove even the potential. But sometimes there is the need for more than 2. And then you have to just conduct business in a way, or conduct yourself in a way that's not directing or impacting business at all, and you're totally legal and compliant.
I guess.
So let me clear something up, because I want to make.
I guess it's better to ask forgiveness than to ask permission, and so we just do it and ask forgiveness.
So let me clear something up, in case because there's people in the room and there's people maybe watching this. So this was not a county meeting. So first of all, that's been stated up here tonight, and that's not correct.
Who called the meeting?
This was not a county meeting, Johnny. This was a meeting of an external organization, and we were invited. I was invited to come answer questions based on a prior decision of the board. So first of all, to classify that as a county-controlled or county-called meeting is incorrect. That meeting was not of the county. It was a meeting of an external organization. So I went to answer questions.
Okay, I apologize for it, so that way, like I say, we all can show up anytime we choose to,
Oh,
and if it ain't right, then we ask forgiveness.
That's true, but I think you also got to pay attention to what Martha said. The purpose of that meeting was the purpose of that meeting was that agency. And then I was invited to answer questions based on the previous board decision.
The particular meeting with the agent was directed towards a certain topic. Anyway, whatever. That's all I got.
Anybody else? Staff, you got any questions? Then report.
May I clarify one thing? Back up to the consent item. We set a public hearing, and I did not give us a date. So that would be at our next meeting, which is April the 19th. So I said request to set a public hearing, but I did not say a date. And staff notified me of that?
No, it's May 3rd.
May 3rd. May 3rd will be the
May
public
3rd.
hearing date, and that is item I. My apologies.
Anybody else? All right, with that, we're at the end of the agenda, and do I hear a motion to, let me make this statement. The next meeting of the Cleveland County Board of Commissioners will be held on Tuesday, April 19th at 6 p.m. here in the Commissioner Chambers. With that, I'll seek a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no.